Okay, so this is my first recipe from HelloFresh, and this is going to be the tangy toasted Thai rice with shrimp. I did record this when my family was home, so it was very noisy in the background. So although you won't get the actual sounds from the cooking, I have pulled out some of my favorite sounds from this meal, so you will get to experience those. I'll recreate them here in the narration. And this recipe says, chili, lime, and soy sauce pack a serious flavor punch in this Thai-inspired dish. The toasted rice adds nutty flavor and a contrast of textures that round out the dish. So I'm adding 2 teaspoons of oil to a pot, and I'm going to let that heat up. One thing that I did is I actually had a third guest on this evening, so I increased the ingredients quite a bit. So they provided 1 cup of rice, and you were supposed to add half of that to the pot. I doubled the rice, so I added a whole cup of rice to the pot, and I also called for 1 red bell pepper, and I happened to have 4 banana peppers that had grown in my garden that needed to be used up, and I wanted to increase the recipe, so I added 4 banana peppers, which you'll see later. And I also added an extra probably cup of frozen corn to the canned corn that they provided. So now I'm going to add the rice to the pot now that the oil's hot, and then you just need to continuously mix the rice. So toasting rice before cooking it is not something that I have done before, but it really added a very nice flavor to the rice, and I really liked it, and it's something I will definitely do again. It didn't take that long. There's not a lot of editing in this video, so you'll see exactly how long it took to toast the rice. And this was a cup of rice, so it probably would have taken a little bit shorter time if I had used the half a cup that they recommended. So the ingredients for this recipe are, and this was all included in the HelloFresh box that I got, 8 ounces of shrimp, and the shrimp had no tails but was uncooked. 1 cup of basmati rice, 2 cloves of garlic, and the garlic was nicely peeled. I don't know how they peeled all this garlic. So now I'm adding pepper to the rice. It's one of the very few complaints that I have about this recipe. It said to add salt and pepper to the rice as you're toasting it, yet it did not tell you how much salt or pepper to add. So what it says for this section in the recipe, sorry, I check recipes often because otherwise I mess stuff up. In a pot over medium heat, add 2 teaspoons of olive oil. Once hot, add half the brown rice, salt and pepper, and toast until golden brown. Stir continuously as the rice can burn. So that's the only part that's hard for me. When I cook, I tend to multitask quite a bit, so standing over a pot and just stirring rice is a bit difficult for me. It's one of the reasons why I have a very hard time making risotto, because you're really supposed to just stand there and add a little bit of broth at a time, and I'm just way too impatient for that. So let me give you the rest of this recipe. So 2 scallions, 1 red bell pepper, 1 lime, 1 can of corn. As I said on my earlier video about the HelloFresh box, I was not too keen on the fact that it was canned corn. But I added my own frozen corn, and I just washed the canned corn off. And since it was not a lot of corn, and since I don't do cans very often, I made an exception and used it, because I didn't want to just give it away, although I probably should have just given it to the food pantry. But so 2 tablespoons of soy sauce, 1 teaspoon of chili flakes, and 1 teaspoon of olive oil. So now that the rice is toasted, I added the remaining cup of rice, and now I'm getting, if you're using 1 cup of rice total, it's 1.5 cups of water, according to them. I always use double water to my rice. So I used 2 cups of rice, so I am now adding 4 cups of water. And maybe what they gave is not a full cup of rice or something, which is why they said 1.5 cups of water, but what I used was perfect. So now you're going to bring it to a boil, and then turn the heat to low, cover and simmer for 10 minutes, then rest off the heat for 10 more minutes. And it says don't peek until the 10 minutes are up, which actually was a good comment, because I'm really, I worry about rice. I have a rice cooker, so that's the way I usually make my rice, just because I don't always have great luck with making rice on the stove. So now I'm going to start cutting. I'm sorry that my butcher block area is so dark. I will make sure to get better lighting on there next time. So now I'm going to cut up the other ingredients that I mentioned. The only other ingredients on this recipe that I hadn't mentioned was that there's 1 teaspoon of chili flakes and 1 tablespoon of olive oil. The nutrition is 386 calories per serving. Their recipe is 2 servings. Again, because I doubled it, I probably had not quite 4 servings, because I didn't double everything. I didn't double the shrimp. I didn't double the lime, some of the seasonings, but basically it's the shrimp that I didn't double. And carbohydrates, 37 grams, 12 grams of fat, and 27 grams of protein. So pretty good. It's actually the lowest calorie of what they provided. So now I'm going to cut the red pepper and the only other complaint that I had on this recipe, which I will mention again later too, is everything was portioned out that they provided, except the chili flakes, which luckily I noticed in the recipe they wrote chili flakes to taste. I used maybe 1/3 of the chilies that they provided, 1/3 of the chili flakes, and we really like spicy food. Now, I wouldn't have made it as spicy because my 3rd guest does not like spicy food as much. So I do have a knife here so I can make the sounds of cutting, which I also like. And And if I had dumped in the whole packet of chili flakes that they provided, we wouldn't have been able to eat the meal. So I kind of think that maybe on their recipe they should have had a big warning saying, make sure you do this to taste, because since everything else was portioned out, I don't know that I would have caught right away that you aren't just supposed to dump the whole thing of chili flakes in. And it was quite a lot of chili flakes for me. I think it was actually more than a teaspoon in the little packet that I got. So I'm cutting up the red bell pepper here. And then, like I said, I have 4 banana peppers. And my banana peppers are sort of a yellow. Apparently, if you leave them long enough, they will turn red. They're kind of a yellow-green. They will turn red, like that pepper. And I've had one earlier in the season that turned red-ish on part of it. But we were afraid these were not turning color. They were already really big. And I was afraid if we left them on the vine much longer that something would eat them and they wouldn't be edible for us. So I did pick them, kind of this yellow color, and they still taste great, and I loved them in this recipe. And it's probably something I will continue to do with most of these recipes. We are not vegetarian, but we don't eat a lot of meat at our house, and I got the full meat program at HelloFresh just because I think it's more economical. Since we do eat meat sometimes, it's only $10 less to get the vegetarian meal. And honestly, if you're getting 3 meals worth of meat, you would spend a lot more than $10 on that meat. So what I may do is skip every other day and make something vegetarian at home, and maybe freeze one of the meat options and make it later in the week, since the produce can probably wait another 4 or 5 days. The other thing I've decided to do with the HelloFresh is to skip every 4th week of delivery. And the main reason is because I think we are going to get sick of that much meat. And I think we're going to need a week off that we basically eat vegetarian, just because we're not used to eating this much meat. So tonight I'm going to make their artisan sausage dish, which looks delicious. But they provide 4 sausages, and they consider it 2 portion sizes. And for me, I could not eat 2 sausages. Just too much protein for me. I'm not used to it. So luckily I still have my 3rd guest staying with us. So we will probably each have a sausage, and then we'll have an extra one for tomorrow. So now I'm going to mince the garlic. This is one mistake I made. I cut everything on the same cutting board. I don't like doing dishes, so I try to not, put extra things in a bowl if I don't have to, and I try and just sort of do everything on one cutting board if I can. So I cut everything on the same cutting board, and then I realized that they're actually supposed to go in the pot separately. I also realized when I went to do the shrimp that my husband sometimes does some cooking with his classroom. So he had actually taken all of the cutting boards but one. So I didn't have another cutting board to do the shrimp on. So I needed to take the vegetables off of this cutting board so that I could cut the shrimp. So you probably do want to use separate cutting boards, or you want to get a bowl out and put the peppers into a bowl prior to cutting the scallions and the garlic. So I cut the pepper into thin strips. I minced the garlic, and now I'm going to slice the scallions. And then I'm going to cut the lime in half and cut 1/2 of the lime into wedges and to juice the other half. So you'll see I just juiced the lime over the pot when it was time for it to go in. So here I am. I'm gonna open another garlic. Again, I apologize for how dark that is, but it's another clove of garlic since I do have a third guest. Normally I would probably double the garlic, but I wasn't sure if she would like that much garlic in there. So I'm adding another clove of garlic that I had in my fridge. And this was really a very easy recipe. It was very nice to have everything there ready to go. And we really liked it. It was just the right amount of spice. Again, if it were just my husband and I, we would add more spice, but it was just kind of the edge of heat that my guests could tolerate, and it was enough heat for us, so it was good. So now I'm taking out the scallions. I assume that everything is washed, but I washed everything again anyway. So here are 2 scallions. Scallions are something I never have in the house. Very rare unless I buy it for a recipe, which is always a bit of a pain because a lot of recipes need scallions, but I never have them. I substitute onions quite a lot from scallions just because I usually do have onions in the house. I also grow in my garden some Egyptian onions, which are a bit more like scallions. So I do grow those, and I will substitute those for scallions or onions. Those are really nice because the stems grow up and then they flower, and those flowers drop to the ground, and the flowers start another Egyptian onion. So I planted them about 3 years ago, and I've never had to replant them because they just keep reseeding themselves with these flowers. The only problem is they will sort of migrate all over your garden unless you kind of move them. Or what I used to do is I used to just pick the ones to use from the areas that I didn't really want, where I didn't really want them to be growing. So there's my lime. Cut that in half. I cut 3 little wedges. I actually cut 4 little wedges because I wanted a little bit more lime juice. And honestly, I wish I had actually added a little bit more just lime juice because I did have some lime juice in the fridge. I would have liked a little bit more lime juice in it because I really like the taste of lime juice. So I'm pretty much done cutting at this point, except for the shrimp. And I may get a little bit of flack for the next part, but this is where I now realize that I only have 1 cutting board. So I am going to get I'm going to open that cabinet, and you can see the cords to the video camera, and I am going to get a bowl to put the peppers in because the peppers have to go in first. So the next step is cutting the shrimp and then draining the corn that's in a can. But if I'm going to cut the shrimp, I need to put the peppers in a bowl. I need to put the scallions in a bowl. Now the part I might get flack for is I'm going to use this same cutting board to cut the shrimp on. I'm going to have the garlic on there. But in my defense, I have nothing else to cut at this point. So no vegetables are going to go back onto this cutting board. It is just going to be the shrimp. I am scooping off all the vegetables that are not going to go in the pan with the shrimp. I do leave the garlic on there because it's going to go right in the pan with the shrimp anyway. So some people may say I shouldn't use the same cutting board anyway, but I think actually it's perfectly hygienic and fine. Obviously I wouldn't do it if I didn't think it was, since I'm done cutting except for the shrimp. So now I'm going to scoop up the scallions, put them in this little cup. Again, I hate using all these extra little cups that I'm going to have to wash, but that's okay. And then I'm going to chop the shrimp into small chunks. And I was really glad because when you look at the picture on the front of the recipe, it shows you shrimp with the outside, what's it called? Shell. It's not really their shell, but, and the tail and the legs. But what I actually got was shrimp that had no tails and no shell. It was all ready to be cut. So that was nice. And I was thinking, it looked like plenty of shrimp for 2. It actually was plenty of shrimp for 3. Again, because we're not real big meat eaters anyway, it was fine to have, the amount of shrimp that we were given. And this has, 8 ounces of shrimp, which is actually fine. Me gave it that little bit of extra shrimp and protein in the rice, but not too much. So I was pretty happy with the amount that was in there. So far, I'm very happy with this recipe. Again, we ate it that night, and it was really delicious. I might have added, like I said, a little bit more lime. If it was just my husband and I would have added more of the pepper, the red pepper that came with it. But, and I would have added more garlic. But I think, actually, if I had stuck with the recipe they sent, which was just for 2, it might have been fine without the extra. It was just that I added so much extra rice and everything. And, I maybe could have added some more soy sauce just because I doubled the recipe, but I didn't, so it probably would have been more flavorful if I'd used the actual recipe for it. So that's all the shrimp. It's actually quite a lot of shrimp. And then I'm going to go and drain the corn. Okay, so now I'm going to start cooking. I'm going to pour another tablespoon of olive oil over medium-high heat. And once that's hot, I'm going to add in the pepper and chili flakes to taste. Just a little note saying to taste. Should have been big, red, scary. Again, if I had added that whole thing, I would not have been able to eat it. And I like spicy, so after adding in the pepper, I'm going, so that's the chili flakes right there. Again, it's a pretty big container of chili flakes. And I'm only going to add maybe an 1/8 of a teaspoon, maybe a 1/4 of a teaspoon. So that's where I luckily notice that it's only to taste. So just gonna sprinkle in a little. I'm gonna taste it a few times to see if it needs more. Okay, I'm adding in the peppers. The recipe says to cook the peppers for a minute, but I probably cooked them a little bit longer because I had more than twice the amount of peppers with my banana peppers in there as well. So, reading the recipe. Putting a little bit more of the chili flakes. Now I'm going to get the garlic and the shrimp, and after a minute I'm going to add the garlic and the shrimp, and then I'm going to cook that for a few minutes until the shrimp are pink. Now the rice at this point is sitting for 10 minutes with the lid on after I had brought it to a boil. Now I'm dumping in the shrimp and the garlic, which are all on that cutting board. And I am bulldozing with my knife. So I was told when I took a culinary class, never bulldoze with your knife. Never use your knife to slide things off of your cutting board. But if you do, make sure to use the back of it, not the blade of it. So I did use the back, even though I did bulldoze. So just going to cook that for a few minutes. And pretty much, once you've cooked the shrimp, you're basically done. There's not a whole lot more to do. So you're going to fluff, when I'm done with that, when the shrimp turn pink, I'm going to fluff the rice with a fork. And they say add the rice, so there I'm fluffing the rice with a fork. They say add the rice to the peppers, but since I didn't have my big frying pan, I added the peppers into the rice. So add that in. It's a very heavy skillet. And then I'm adding in the corn. So that is a can of corn plus another cup's worth of frozen corn. So I'm dumping that into the pan. And then I'm going to get the scallions. So oh, that was my lime juice that I added in. I thought I had juiced it right over the pot, but apparently I juiced it into a measuring cup that I had used for the rice. Again, I try to conserve my dishes. And adding in the soy sauce. It was kind of funny, you know, they sent these little packets of soy sauce, you know, like you would get at a Chinese restaurant. So that was kind of funny. They had 4 of them. I thought I might not need all of them, but I'm actually glad I used all of them, and I might have even added a little bit more on second thought because I did double the recipe, but I used them all. And I was hoping they would make really good noises, but they actually didn't. I mean, I'm sure it would have if I had just played with the packet, but opening them up didn't actually make a really nice noise. But so then just mixing that up. And then the scallions, and mixing that in. And then you're basically gonna cook the rice for 3 more minutes. Which was good because my corn was not completely de-thawed yet at that point. But once those 3 minutes are up, you are basically done. Gotta taste it, see what it needs. That was one of the best cooking instructions I ever learned, was to taste everything. Oh, now I'm gonna add the remaining soy sauce because it definitely needs it for flavor. And I'm going to add a little bit more of the roasted red pepper too. Throw everything away, and then I'm basically done. So now I'm just going to scoop it up into a bowl, put a lime wedge on top, and there is my finished product.